the cracking beneath your feet. Have you ever heard of early plate tectonics hypothesis? Does the name Jason Morgan sound familiar to you? Evidence of ancient seafloor spreading has been staring humanity in the face for decades. You're standing on something that shouldn't be still, that was never meant to be still. The ground below you, the one you've always assumed is solid and still, it isn't. It breathes, it drifts, it dreams, and a long time ago, someone noticed. Not a scientist, not a geologist, a shepherd, perhaps a child, watching the cracks on the ground in the heat of summer and wondering why they shift when nothing else does. Long before universities and labs, long before the term tectonic existed, people understood the earth was not whole. Myths of separation, of continents being torn apart like flesh, run deep through human stories. The Navajo whisper of holy twins splitting the earth to create paths. The Yoruba of West Africa speak of Obatala crafting land from floating mud. Plato spoke of Atlantis being swallowed. But what if none of that was just myth? In 1912, Alfred Wegener pointed to something strange. South America and Africa, two lovers torn apart. Their coastlines, a puzzle with no missing pieces. He proposed continental drift. People laughed. Where's the engine? Where's the mechanism? Enter Jason Morgan in 1967. He wasn't laughing. He was calculating. He gave us the plate tectonics theory, a model so elegant, it made other models bow in shame. The Earth's outer shell isn't one continuous surface. It's broken into plates that float atop the asthenosphere. Now imagine those plates like puzzle pieces made of stone, locked in an eternal dance. They collide, they tear apart, they subduct, they rise. Beneath them, a slow, sludgy ballet of heat from the Earth's core. Your planet's very heartbeat. How do tectonic plates form? Simple. The Earth doesn't cool evenly. Heat trapped inside, since its formation pushes out unevenly, creating pressure zones. Eventually, the crust cracks like the top of an overbaked cake. Over millions of years, those cracks become boundaries. And here's where it gets interesting. The myths weren't just allegory. In a monastery hidden in the Alps, an 8th century monk named Heinrich recorded a roaring sea of rock beneath the Earth's skin. He wasn't imagining it. Today we call it mantle convection. But how do tectonic plates affect the Earth? In every way. They make mountains, they forge oceans, they decide where rainforests flourish and where deserts die. No volcano without a plate, no tsunami without subduction, no Himalayas without a tectonic clash. Who studies them? Once it was shepherds, then came geologists, now theorists, physicists, even national defense analysts. You think it's just about earthquakes and volcanoes? Think again. Satellite surveillance monitors every nanometer of crustal drift. Why? Because movement equals instability, and instability breeds secrets. You may have heard that the Pacific Plate is shrinking. True. What they don't tell you is that it's revealing something as it does. A lost arc of islands with magnetic signatures older than the moon's current orbit. Something that shouldn't exist. Crazy theories about tectonic plates? There's no shortage. Some believe there's a hollow core channeling movement like hydraulic machinery. Others claim every major plate boundary aligns with ancient star charts. A few whisper that the Nazca Plate is a kind of lock, holding something beneath the Andes, something alive. Myths about tectonic plates? Atlantis is just the start. In the Himalayas, shamans speak of mountains that shift overnight, not inches, but miles. In Papua, elders believe the plates are alive, spirits that groan when humans offend them. Let's step back. The early Earth was molten, hostile. The crust cooled and cracked. Heat rose in columns we now call plumes. Those columns pushed up land, split oceans, birthed life. The first volcanoes spewed not just lava, but amino acids. Maybe life didn't just survive tectonics, it was birthed by it. So when people say tectonic plates are just geology, smile. Then point to the clouds shaped by mountains they made. The rain shaped by valleys they carved. The forests fed by ash from volcanic soil. Tectonics doesn't just move the earth, it writes its story. And you? You're just a small vibration on this massive, shifting stage. You're standing on the cracked skin of a living thing. You just don't know it yet. The ground beneath your feet isn't solid, not in the way your bones believe it is. You've been taught since childhood that the earth is firm, that continents are eternal, that mountains are tall because they want to be tall, and oceans are deep because they choose to be. But all of that is a lie, a comforting illusion draped over something wild, something shifting, something you were never meant to see. This is the truth. The earth is still breaking apart. And once upon a time, it broke for the very first time. Let's go back, farther than human memory, deeper than history dares to reach, to a moment where the entire world was held together in a single colossal continent. You know its name. Everyone knows its name. Pangaea, a word that sounds like myth, like something scribbled in a dusty grimoire buried beneath Vatican vaults. But it was real. It breathed. It pulsed. It groaned under the weight of itself. And then it fractured. Not with a bang, not with fire or thunder, but with a slow, silent whisper, like skin peeling away from muscle. The kind of pain that doesn't scream, It simmers. The kind of pain that makes gods hold their breath. How do tectonic plates form? Here's the strange part. No one agrees on the full story, not even the smartest minds in geology. Some say tectonic plates formed early in Earth's youth, about 3.2 billion years ago, when the planet was still wearing a fiery crown and spinning through its adolescent tantrums. Others argue they came much later, after Earth had cooled enough for crust to settle and oceans to weep across its surface. But what we do know is this: Earth's outer shell didn't stay whole. It cracked, and those cracks didn't stop, driven by heat from within, by convection currents rising like ghost fingers through the mantle. Massive slabs of crust were born, floating, sliding, colliding, the first of their kind. These were not just plates. These were borders of reality. There's something beautifully wrong about how they formed. They weren't designed like puzzle pieces. They became puzzle pieces after the fact, as if the Earth was never meant to be understood, only survived. The question still burns in the halls of universities and black sites alike. Was plate tectonics a natural process, or was it introduced? Let that thought simmer, because here's where things get stranger. The myths about tectonic plates. The Aztecs believed the gods built the world 5 times, and each time it collapsed. Why? Earthquakes, continental shifts, plates moving beneath their feet. They didn't call it tectonics, they called it wrath. Rituals were held to keep the world from cracking again. Blood was the glue. In Maori stories, the god Ruaumoko sleeps beneath the earth, his restless movements causing tremors. In Japanese Shinto tradition, a giant catfish, Namazu, thrashes beneath the islands. Ancient truth in symbolic skin. But what if those myths weren't stories? What if they were memories? Now consider this. What if the gods they feared weren't divine at all, but ancient scientists? What if plate tectonics wasn't just a physical phenomenon, but a system, a maintained machine, part of a ritual long forgotten? That idea isn't new, you just haven't been told about it. Some whispers claim the Earth was once a lab, that it cracked not because of heat, but by design, that the shifting plates were a self-repairing system gone wrong. But let's stay grounded, for now. How do they affect the Earth? Everything you know, every continent, every ocean basin, every mountain is a side effect. Plate tectonics builds the world even as it destroys it. Oceans open, islands are born from fire, mountains are crushed from collisions like titans wrestling in silence. Without tectonic movement, you wouldn't have oxygen-rich air. You wouldn't have climate cycles. You wouldn't even have dry land to begin with. Volcanoes, fault lines, subduction zones. These aren't accidents. They are gears in a biological machine. A terraforming ritual that never stopped performing. The Himalayas were not always tall. They rose because India slammed into Asia like a lover returning too hard. The Atlantic was not always wide. It yawns open because the mid-Atlantic ridge can't help but give birth, again and again, under the sea. If the Earth were a body, tectonic plates are its pulse. Who studies them? The usual names show up in textbooks. Alfred Wegener, Jason Morgan, Marie Tharp. They gave us terms, they gave us maps, but they didn't give us everything, because here's what doesn't get published. The U.S. Navy once classified entire sections of ocean floor mapping. Why? Because they found something metallic, something geometric, something not quite rock. In 1972, a Soviet drilling operation in the Kola Peninsula supposedly hit a cavity 9 miles deep. Instruments recorded noises, screaming. The project was abruptly shut down. Officially, it was too hot. Unofficially, no one talks about it. You don't study tectonic plates without hearing the stories about deep booms, about crust shifting when it shouldn't, about GPS data that gets corrected before it reaches civilian scientists. There are labs hidden in Antarctica. There are expeditions lost in the Pacific. There are seismographs that go silent at the exact moment something should register. So, yes, people study tectonics, but they don't always survive the knowledge. Crazy theories about tectonic plates. Now we step into the unspoken. The theory 1. The Earth was originally smooth. Plate tectonics was triggered by an impact, an external force, a weapon, a cosmic experiment. Theory 2. The plates are artificial, enormous crustal constructs built by a pre-human civilization designed to regulate internal temperature and ocean chemistry, maintained by mechanisms we haven't even named yet. Theory 3. The plates are alive. Not metaphorically. Living tissue, regenerating and responding to stimuli. The ridges and trenches are their nerves. Earthquakes, reflexes, subduction, digestion. Theory 4. Plate tectonics is a prison system. Each slab is a seal, holding something beneath, something ancient, something large. As long as they keep moving, the locks stay closed. Why does no one talk about these theories? Because if they're true, the world isn't ours. It never was. It and its relationship to the world. Here's the paradox. Without tectonics, you don't get life. But with tectonics, you also get extinction. The Great Dying, 250 million years ago, was triggered by massive volcanic outpouring caused by a rift in the plates. The dinosaurs? Wiped out by an impact. Yes, but their graves were dug by shifting land. Human migration patterns controlled by where continents collided or split. Languages, cultures, even wars, all shadows of tectonic movement. And yet, here we are, alive. Because Earth's plates keep shifting, cycling nutrients, cooling the core, adjusting the balance. They kill us and save us. They move mountains and erase cities. They make history and then bury it. They are the oldest rhythm the planet knows, and you walk on them every day like they owe you something. Have you ever stood on the ground and thought about what's below? Not the soil, not the worms, not the little pockets of water or the cables carrying electricity, but deep, deep enough that no map dares sketch it. That's where you are now, somewhere between fire and pressure, somewhere old. You can't hear anything but the low, soft groan of the earth shifting. You are inside a story older than stories. A story told not in words, but in collisions, subductions, uplifts, in silence, in tremors, in mountains born from nothing. This is the part of the planet where it creates itself and undoes itself again and again. We begin this section not with a myth, but with a mythic act. The splitting of the supercontinent Pangaea. It wasn't fast, it didn't scream, it didn't even ripple the ocean right away, but slowly, like someone peeling their own skin back. The earth began to divide itself. You're standing in the middle of that parting, 1 foot on what will become North America, the other on Africa, and the crack is widening. It's not just the break that matters, it's the consequences. You might ask, how do tectonic plates form? Think of the Earth's mantle not as stone, but as a living, convecting sea of hot rock. Heat rises from the core, heat older than the moon, and churns in slow, chaotic currents, like soup in a forgotten cauldron. The mantle boils with lazy rage. Over time, this creates stress at the lithosphere, the brittle skin of the planet. The crust begins to crack, bend, split into fragments we now call plates. Once broken, these plates start to drift, not aimlessly, but with intent. And here's the trick. They float on the mantle's convecting currents like rafts on magma. Wherever the current pulls, the plate must follow. Sometimes, this brings them into slow collisions that fold the earth like origami. Sometimes, they grind past each other and leave scars we name fault lines. But you're not here for the basics. You're here for what this act means. The earth is not just a rock. It is a participant in ritual. The breaking of Pangaea was a beginning, but also a continuation of something that happens again and again, a sacred rhythm of gathering and splitting. Like breath, creation and destruction in equal measure. So when the earth began to split Pangaea, it wasn't a random act. It was a rite, Let's shift the scene. Now you're at the mid-Atlantic ridge. It's quiet. So quiet you can hear the bubbles of magma rise like champagne, but you're underwater, miles beneath the sea, watching as new crust forms in real time. The mid-Atlantic ridge is where the ritual continues. The slow unzipping of the sea floor. Magma pushes upward, crust is born, and the continents move. Right now, you are witnessing a myth that no one above knows is unfolding. A kind of secret God work. This is how they affect the earth. These plates, they build mountains, they open oceans, they change the weather by raising continents and creating new wind patterns. They seal away carbon, they even spark life. Because, yes, life is not possible without plate tectonics. Let's get serious. How can moving rocks create life? Hydrothermal vents, deep sea openings, where tectonic activity allows heat and minerals to escape, are among the likeliest birthplaces of life on Earth. Around these vents, in darkness and pressure, bacteria arose, not from light, not from sun, but from heat. From the exact heat and chemicals released by shifting plates, life crawled out of a crack. Not Eden, a fault line. The plates built the world. And then they built the life crawling on it. They did it by recycling nutrients, by smashing continents together and forcing land upwards, so rain could erode it and feed rivers. By creating coasts and rifts and islands, they sculpted not just the ground beneath us, but the air above us, the climate, the currents, and the very possibility of forests, plains, and civilization. And like all myths, people misunderstood them. The myths about tectonic plates are many. In Maori myth, the Earth Mother Papatuanuku is split by her children, tearing her apart so light can enter. In Hindu cosmology, the continents rest on the backs of elephants, standing on a cosmic turtle. In the Norse Edda, earthquakes are caused by Loki thrashing in his underground prison. You start to wonder, were these just stories? Or were they attempts to explain the sacred, terrifying movements of the earth that no one could predict? Maybe the people knew not through science, but through dream, intuition, divination. And maybe the modern world, in all its arrogance, thinks it knows better. Until a quake hits. Who studies tectonic plates? Well, they don't wear wizard robes, though maybe they should. They're geologists, seismologists, volcanologists. Some climb volcanoes. Some listen for tiny echoes deep inside the earth. Some just look at satellite data and frown a lot. But others are looking for more. Hidden in every government, in every military, is a secret file marked tectonic. You didn't hear that from me? Some believe that the plates can be manipulated. That by setting off controlled detonations in subduction zones, You can cause or stop quakes. The tectonics are not just natural systems, but potential weapons. Sounds crazy? Maybe. But so did the idea that continents move. So did the idea that the earth isn't flat. So did every single thing we now accept. There's one last thing, a theory most have never heard. Some believe that tectonic activity is not just Earth's internal mechanism, but its communication system. That the rumblings and quakes are a language, a warning, a memory. They believe that the splitting of Pangaea wasn't just a geological process. It was a signal, a message sent into space, a kind of slow-motion flare. Why? No one knows. But perhaps in another 300 million years, when the continents join again, the Earth will finally finish the sentence. And maybe, just maybe, someone will be listening. You've heard the ground rumble, haven't you? Sometimes at night, when everything's supposed to be quiet, when the world pretends to rest, you felt it, that eerie sensation crawling up your spine, as if something deep beneath your feet is shifting. Not just rock, not just heat, something older, something sacred, something alive. What if I told you the movement of tectonic plates is not just science, not just about convection currents and mid-ocean ridges, but an ancient rite, a planetary ritual that predates gods, predates man, predates memory. Let's go back before maps, before the continents had names, back when all land was fused in a shape so poetic, it made cartographers weep. Pangaea. But even Pangaea, majestic as it sounds, wasn't the first. Before her were others, Rodinia, Columbia, Nuna, each rising, splitting, drifting like breath caught in the Earth's lungs. Each time they fractured, something was reborn. The skies changed. Life evolved. Magic, if you can call it that, seeped through those molten seams. This is where the story grows stranger. In a Tibetan monastery, there's a scroll too brittle to unfold completely. It speaks of the veins of the earth, living rivers of fire that sleep beneath mountains and wake once every age to reshape the planet. In Peru, some Incan priests believed the Andes were one raised by geological force, but by divine agreement, the earth folding in reverence to the sun. In Java, a myth whispers of giant turtles carrying entire land masses on their backs, shifting when they dream. Which is why earthquakes come without warning. You might roll your eyes, but here's a question that never stops biting. Why do so many ancient cultures, separated by time, language, and oceans, describe the same thing? Why do their creation stories echo the language of modern plate tectonics? Is it coincidence, or is it revelation? let's make this more interesting. In the late 1970s, the Soviet Union funded an expedition under the Kola Peninsula to drill the deepest hole ever attempted. The Kola Super Deep Borehole. Ostensibly, it was a scientific endeavor to study the Earth's crust, to find rare minerals, maybe oil. But unredacted fragments from Cold War archives suggest something else. A classified theory was being tested, that certain fault lines aligned with ancient astrological grids. A geomantic resonance was theorized, whatever that means. They reached 12 to 18 meters, and then they stopped. The project was suddenly abandoned. Equipment malfunctioned. Voices were reportedly heard from the hole, shrill, layered, echoing in ways that metal shouldn't echo. The lead scientist wrote only 2 words in his final report before he vanished. It breathes. You tell yourself, it's just superstition. But then, tectonic plates start moving in rhythmic patterns. Earthquakes occur in synchronized intervals across continents, like drum beats in a ritual. This happened in 19 hours, again in 2011, and now you're starting to feel it again. We've talked about how tectonic plates form, how they shape mountains and spawn earthquakes, how scientists like Jason Morgan and Dan McKenzie helped us understand the mechanics. But what if understanding the mechanics wasn't enough? What if the plates weren't passive chunks of lithosphere, but participants? Because if they are, then what are we? Passengers or part of the ride? Do you remember the legend of Atlantis? Most think it was sunk by the sea. But the earliest fragments from Plato's dialogues describe Atlantis as being pulled downward by the earth itself, like a breath inward. Earth didn't drown Atlantis, it swallowed it, and perhaps, just perhaps, that wasn't punishment. Maybe Atlantis was the offering. You think I'm being poetic again? But consider this. A few weeks ago, a seismograph in New Zealand picked up a signal not tied to any quake. Just a low, continuous hum, pulsing every 26 seconds. It's been doing that since the 1960s. Scientists call it a microseism, caused by ocean waves hitting the coast. They think, but nobody's sure. No one's ever really sure, because the Earth doesn't explain itself. It moves, and we try to keep up. Think of it like this. Tectonic plates are the Earth's way of writing, like script on a parchment made of fire and stone. Each collision, each subduction zone, each rift valley. It's not chaos. It's a sentence, a declaration, an invocation of change. The Himalayas weren't born by accident. They were summoned. You walk this world thinking gravity keeps you grounded. But sometimes it's the myth that does. Sometimes it's the ancient idea that the Earth is alive. and we are the ritual it performs. So when the plates next shift, and they will, listen, not with your ears, with whatever's left of your instinct. You might hear the murmur of something waking up. Not evil, not divine, just old. So, we've traveled far, from the first continental breaths of Pangaea to the cold, secretive drilling in the Kola Peninsula, from the cracking ice of Gondwana to myths sung on temple steps and whispered in government bunkers. You didn't think plate tectonics could feel like prophecy, did you? But now, you see it. How the earth doesn't just host life, it performs it. Every shift beneath our feet is a choreography we've only begun to decipher. Every plate boundary is a hidden altar. Subduction zones are sacrifices. Mid-ocean ridges, rebirths. We asked, how do tectonic plates form? From ancient heat, from motion locked in silence, from chaos that became rhythm. We asked, how do they affect the earth? With thunderous intent, raising mountains, birthing oceans, dictating evolution with every slip and grind. We asked, who studies them? Scientists. Yes, but also poets, shamans, and those who dream with their hands on stone. And we asked about the myths, the crazy theories. The secret states don't print in textbooks. Now you know. It's not that the science is wrong. It's that the science is incomplete, and the missing piece might just be magic. Quiet, old, and buried deep, so the next time the ground trembles, don't just brace. Listen, feel, and maybe, just maybe, pause.